Hello and welcome to ABC News Sunday. I'm Tamara O'Dine. The Victorian Government is planning a $1.5 billion upgrade to the state's rail network. Most of the money will be spent on the ageing Gippsland line and running more train services. But as Liz Hobday reports, there's already uncertainty over how the project will be funded.
It's billed as the Regional Rail Revival, and it's a centrepiece of Tuesday's budget.
It's about giving regional Victorians a public transport system that they can count on.
But as V-Line passengers know all too well, things don't always go according to plan.
Rail upgrade.
Please
That's
note the
right.
train is heavily patronised and there are no seating available, thank you.
There's already a stoush over who will pay for the $1.45 billion project, which relies on the federal government providing extra money from its asset recycling scheme in return for the state's privatisation of the Port of Melbourne. The federal government says Victoria missed the funding deadline and may not get the cash.
Premier Andrews has written a Santa wish list without any money of his own on the table, without any planning, without a business case.
We sold the port, we've got a written agreement, that money belongs to Victorians.
The plan covers much of the state. There's $435 million for more trains on the Gippsland line, more than $200 million for better services in the southwest, including more trains to Warrnambool. $110 million on a new Surf Coast rail project, including a future rail link to Torquay. There's also $91 million on the lines to Bendigo and Echuca, and $39 million to improve services to Ararat and Maryborough. The project headquarters will be in the Latrobe Valley, which the government says will create 400 jobs in a region that's reeling from the shutdown of the Hazelwood Power Station. In Warragul, the rail upgrade is welcome.
I think it's great. And I think it is overdue.
A lot of times you find people are standing on a train, there's not enough seats.
They need to run more trains more frequently, like V-Lines, because down here they only come every hour or so.
Trains to the Surf Coast are still a long way off, but the government will buy up land on the way to Torquay.
We are the fastest growing regional town in Victoria, so it's huge. The need for a efficient public transport system is vital.
For Torquay, the prospect of a Surf Coast rail line only intensifies concerns about overcrowding. It's a small town of about 15,000 people, and more than half commute to Melbourne or Geelong for work. The government will also spend $10 million developing plans for a rail link between Southern Cross Station and Melbourne Airport. Liz Hobday, ABC News, Melbourne.
An almost $1.5 billion boost to regional rail has been unveiled by the Premier ahead of Tuesday's state budget. But the upgrades won't get the green light without Commonwealth support. Emily Rice explains.
The hour-and-a-half rail journey between Warragul in the state's southeast and Melbourne is often a squeezy ride.
It has been extremely crowded. There's been people standing up from Melbourne right through to here.
I have a crook back and sometimes the train's full.
Now the Premier is promising to lighten the load for commuters with a $1.45 billion boost to regional rail in next week's state budget.
It's about giving regional Victorians a public transport system that they can count on.
More than $400 million is for infrastructure improvements to the Gippsland service, putting more trains on the line and ensuring they run on time. The rail boost will extend statewide with $200 million for extra services to and from Warrnambool, more than $100 million for Surf Coast track improvements, including a future line to Torquay, and $91 million for faster and more frequent trains to Bendigo and Echuca. But as with any budget announcement, the devil is in the detail. Before any rail upgrades proceed, the Commonwealth must hand Victoria the money it's entitled to under what's called the Asset Recycling Fund. This Commonwealth scheme hands the state's monetary bonuses for selling private assets such as the Port of Melbourne.
Every single dollar that's required to fund these projects is Victorian money. Every single dollar.
But local federal Liberal MP Darren Chester says the cash splash isn't a done deal.
This would be a great announcement if it was true, but unfortunately it's not true. The money that the Premier is talking about is the subject of dispute between the state and federal governments.
These weary travellers just want the railway service back on track.
And it's well overdue. It should have been done probably 10 years ago.
Emily Rice, 9 News.
Regional train users are set to benefit from Tuesday's state budget, with $1 billion earmarked to upgrade every line in Victoria. The plan also includes a new Surf Coast connection to Torquay, but there is a catch. The state government is relying on money from the Port of Melbourne sale and needs the federal government to get on board.
The Premier's train pulled into Warragul 15 minutes late, which is why Daniel Andrews says his $1 billion upgrades are a necessity.
We know that our regional train services need to be better.
That's $1.45 billion better, a cornerstone of Tuesday's state budget. $435 million will fund new tracks and stations on the Gippsland line, enabling services to run every 40 minutes. $200 million will boost rail services in Barwon South and Warrnambool. $110 million has been allocated for a new Surf Coast rail project, including land reservations for a line to Torquay, and $91 million for upgrades in Echuca and Bendigo.
It's about giving regional Victorians a public transport system that they can count on. It's also about creating hundreds and hundreds of jobs right across regional Victoria.
We're ready to go, and we'd be keen to move as quickly as possible to that delivery stage.
The state government says this country train package is vital, as just last month there was a record 1.9 million trips on V-Line, but to go ahead it needs the backing of the federal government.
This would be a great announcement if it was true, but unfortunately it's not true. The money that the Premier is talking about is a subject of dispute between the state and federal governments.
But the Premier says he does have the cash thanks to the Port of Melbourne sale.
I really hope that we don't have to argue about this. We can just get on and get these upgrades done.
Ladies and gentlemen, please note the 9:57 service is completely booked out.
Proving the upgrades can't come soon enough. Tegan Dolling, 7 News.
Gippsland's rail line will receive a major upgrade following the $400 million announcement ahead of tomorrow's state budget, but it's not yet clear who'll foot the bill, with the opposition labelling the Premier's visit to the region as a political stunt.
Stepping off the train at Warragul, the Premier's V-Line service arrived on time, but commuters heading back to the city weren't quite as lucky.
Passengers travelling through to Melbourne, we have express road coach through to Southern Cross.
We need a rail upgrade.
Please note the train is heavily patronised and there are no seating available, thank you.
In a major boost for regional rail, $435 million will be invested in improving the problematic V-Line service. Notorious sections of the Gippsland line will be upgraded and duplicated, creating 400 much-needed jobs for the region, with a dedicated project office built in the Latrobe Valley.
Those jobs are badly needed, and we'll be there to support those workers, and we'll try and make sure as many of those jobs and as much of this work goes to locals. That's the other benefit of this.
The opposition was quick to label the train tour a political stunt. It fears the Premier is making promises he can't keep.
Premier Andrews has written a Santa wish list to the Prime Minister without any money of his own on the table, without any planning, without a business case, and without any commitment for state government funding.
But we are concerned about where the money is to come from and the length of time in which those improvements are to be made.
The state government's vowed to follow through on its funding commitment.
I really hope that we don't have to argue about this. We can just get on and get these upgrades done. That'd be the best way to go forward.
Works are expected to begin next year. Rachel Cocard, Win News.